rights and which tier or wave of rights, 1, 2, or 3, deserves to be considered legitimate rights. It seems to be a given throughout time and throughout places in the world that for all human beings, natural rights are legitimate rights. It's kind of assumed to be, partly because we believe that those rights are given to us by God or by nature itself. If somebody is not a believer in God, which seems outrageously absurd, but there are people that deny that God exists. It's kind of like cutting off your nose to spite your face, but people do it. In any case, legitimacy of natural rights is never really in question. But if we look at it through a logical manifestation of the function of human beings, and that is, human beings can think, we can feel, we can unite those two in some kind of reverence and appreciation for things that exist, worship. We can engage in religious practice. We can own things and call them our own. We can go anywhere. All of these functions, these abilities of human beings are at the core, the basis for their right to life, liberty, and property. You can see that logically. So the legitimacy is simply there in the function of human beings to be human beings. Even Aristotle, when he was asked to describe what happiness was, or when he described happiness as living out our full function, the full unique characteristic of human beings, and that was to sit and cogitate, to think, to use our brains. Sitting in a room was pure happiness for him. As a matter of a member of society, engaging with society would have been that, but as an individual, happiness for him was thinking. And for us, natural rights can be thought of in the same way as a natural outgrowth of our function as human beings to speak, to think, to worship, to own property, and to defend ourselves. As that would be an outgrowth or a second level manifestation of that first right of life, liberty, or property, whichever one you want to associate it with. And in any case, it's there. So that would be the legitimacy for first tier rights. Legitimacy for second tier rights. Well, there is some theoretical understanding that the idea of rights in general, human rights, are a matter of social contract. So for those that don't want to rely upon the idea that there is a God and natural rights are an manifestation of the characteristics and the functions that God gave us upon creation, or nature has, if you want to take it that direction. They would go with the idea of social contract. So what is a social contract? A contract, of course, is an agreement between people to do something. I sell a car for $2,000. Somebody gives me $2,000. I give them the car. That would be a contract, and it would be fulfilled under those circumstances. A social contract is one that is not written down. It's not even spoken. It's agreed to, however, by the fact that we continue to live within that society, that social environment. What is that contract? That contract is that we agree to abide by certain rules so that we could have good social commerce with one another without committing crimes against other people, and that if people do things that are not on those or within those agreed upon rules and standards, they could be considered criminals, and we can prosecute them or ostracize them or somehow exclude them from our social commerce. So that idea of rights stemming from social contract, that would be a justification for social and economic rights. I think it flies in the face of the idea of natural rights coming from God or from nature. And so there's a little bit of a conflict there. Third tier rights, what is the legitimacy for third tier rights? I guess the legitimacy for third tier rights is that they can borrow from this non-interference understanding of category 1 and number 2, non-interference. That concept is that people will not interfere with the rights of other people, and non-interference. It's an assumption. It's part of the idea of rights, and the whole structure of rights is assuming that we're not going to interfere with the rights of other people. Non-aggression. One nation will not be aggressive towards another nation to take away their rights. Right? It's the same concept. Well, the group identity rights people take that idea of non-aggression and take that to the next level. Instead of just being non-aggression, they would say that those that are not part of their identity group actually have an affirmative duty towards them to act in a specific way. So to use my pronouns, for instance, stuff like that. Clean up. What should we clean up? There's other concepts that I wanted to bring into this discussion of rights as well that'll kind of set the tone for what follows, but I can't remember what those are at this point. As we come upon the discussion of rights in the future, it's going to be tangential to another discussion. For instance, our next video will be talking about equity versus equality, right? Those are two big concepts that are used in society by the left and the right these days. We're not having any kind of agreement because we can't agree what the definitions of either one of these are. So we'll approach that in our next video and kind of give a coherent definition that seems to work in the society that we're living in today. Fairness and justice, that kind of goes on along with equity and equality. We might make a separate video of fairness and justice, definition of justice, essentially, altogether. Yeah, that's probably it. A short video, but it's enough. It's enough to talk about this. Essentially, when we have three waves of rights, three tiers of rights, the first one is legitimate. The second one, you can make an argument that it's illegitimate by saying that it is illegitimate by saying that it comes out of a social contract, that people agree that these rights are good for the group. Not necessarily good for the individuals, but good for the group. And 3 would be taking the principle of non-aggression and non-interference to the next level, borrowing the idea of a social contract and applying it to even groups that are not making up the majority, but they're loud enough that they're moving the majority to do whatever it is that they will. That's not legitimacy. Third wave rights, third tier rights, identity group rights are not legitimate rights. And I think it's a misnomer to call them identity group rights. So from here on, we might do so, but only tongue-in-cheek. In other words, not seriously, because it's not a serious claim. All right, that's enough for today. I'll talk to you guys later. We'll take up equity and equality in our next video, and then justice in the video after that. Talk to you later.